Right now, the people who won the economic game are quietly paying thousands of dollars to sit in total silence. They aren't doing it for a weekend getaway, a trendy digital detox, or a luxury spa retreat. They are voluntarily flying to remote mountains, stripping away their million-dollar assets, handed a single robe, and left with nothing but their own minds. In a world where everyone is burning themselves out to chase the next dollar, the elite are paying to experience the exact lifestyle of a penniless monk. This isn't a temporary midlife crisis. It's a hidden psychological phenomenon that is quietly spreading through the wealthiest circles on the planet. And the reason behind it exposes a terrifying truth about human nature that most of us will spend our entire lives trying to ignore. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every financial stress you've ever had has vanished. Your bank account has more commas than you can count. You can buy the house on the hill, drive the hypercar you've only seen in magazines, and never look at a price tag again. For the first few months, it feels like euphoria. Every single day is a burst of dopamine. You feel like you've finally beaten the system. But then, a subtle, almost unnoticeable shift begins to happen inside your brain. The luxury car doesn't give you the same rush it did the first week. The mansion just feels like a large, quiet house. You start buying bigger, rarer, more expensive things, desperately trying to recreate that initial feeling of absolute triumph. But the high gets shorter every single time. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. It is a biological law hardwired into our DNA, designed to keep us perpetually dissatisfied. From an evolutionary standpoint, a content caveman was a dead caveman. If our ancestors felt satisfied after finding a single bush of berries, they wouldn't store food for the winter, and they wouldn't survive. So, nature built us to experience a temporary spike of happiness when we achieve a goal, followed by a swift, brutal return to our emotional baseline. The trap is that we believe the baseline moves up with our net worth. It doesn't. You simply run faster, buy more, and achieve more, all while staying in the exact same emotional place. But for the ultra-wealthy, the realization of this treadmill doesn't just cause mild disappointment. It triggers a profound psychological crisis. When most people feel unfulfilled, they have a comforting lie they can tell themselves. They can look at their bank account and say, "If only I had more money, I would finally be happy." This lie acts as a psychological buffer. It gives them hope, a target, a reason to get out of bed and grind. It tells them that their current misery is temporary and fixable. But what happens when you actually get the money? What happens when you reach the absolute peak of the mountain? Look around and realize the emptiness didn't go away. This is the terror of the arrival fallacy. It is the sudden, crushing realization that the prize you spent decades sacrificing your health, relationships, and youth to attain does not possess the power to save you. A billionaire realizes that wealth cannot cure their internal anxiety. The psychological buffer shatters. They are left completely defenseless against their own mind, with no more external milestones left to chase. They have won the game, only to find out the game was rigged from the very beginning. Think about a famous thought experiment involving a lottery winner and an accident victim. Researchers tracked both groups over a long period. Predictably, immediately after the event, the lottery winners were ecstatic, and the accident victims were deeply distressed. Within just 1 year, a bizarre thing happened. Both groups returned to almost identical levels of daily happiness. Lottery winner was no happier walking through their luxury estate than the average person was walking through a grocery store. The human brain adapts to luxury faster than it adapts to anything else. When you can have any meal prepared by a private chef at any hour, food ceases to be a source of joy. It becomes baseline utility. When you can travel to any corner of the earth on a private jet, travel stops being an adventure. It becomes a commute. Eliminating all friction, struggle, and scarcity from their lives, the wealthy inadvertently eliminate the very mechanisms that allow the human brain to experience genuine dopamine spikes. They create a state of psychological numbness, a profound boredom that feels terrifyingly close to depression. To understand why a billionaire would choose to sleep on a wooden floor in a monastery, you have to understand the sheer weight of modern choice architecture. The average person makes thousands of decisions a day. The ultra-wealthy face an exponential explosion of options. Every investment, every property, Every social interaction carries massive stakes and infinite variables. This constant state of calculation causes severe decision fatigue, wearing down the prefrontal cortex until the brain feels chronically inflamed. When a wealthy individual enters a monastery, the first thing they experience is the profound relief of radical constraint. They don't have to choose what to wear. They are given a uniform robe. They don't have to choose what to eat. They eat whatever simple grain is served. They don't have to manage a calendar. Their day is dictated by the ring of a bell. By violently stripping away all choices, they instantly cure their decision fatigue. They discover that true freedom isn't the ability to do anything you want, whenever you want. True freedom is the total absence of the need to choose. There is a hidden cost to extreme wealth that no one warns you about: the death of authentic human connection. The moment a person becomes obscenely rich, their social environment alters fundamentally. Every interaction becomes loaded with hidden agendas. Friends ask for investments, relatives ask for loans, and new acquaintances look at them as a stepping stone, rather than a human being. The wealthy person begins to view every smile, every compliment, and every gesture of kindness through a lens of profound paranoia. They constantly ask themselves, do they actually like me, or do they just like what I can do for them? This creates an intense, isolating loneliness that cannot be cured by attending high society galas. In fact, those galas often amplify the isolation, because everyone there is wearing a carefully crafted social mask. In a monastery, however, the playing field is brutally leveled. Wealth means absolutely nothing to a Zen master. Your titles, your achievements, and your net worth cannot buy you a lighter chore or a softer bed. For a person who has spent decades surrounded by sycophants and opportunists, being treated like an absolute nobody is the most therapeutic experience of their life. It is the only place where they can finally drop their guard and know that they are being valued purely for their existence, not their utility. Our brains are fundamentally wired for contrast. You cannot truly appreciate warmth unless you have been bitterly cold. You cannot fully enjoy a feast unless you have known true hunger. In the modern, hyper-connected world, we have systematically eradicated contrast. We live in climate-controlled rooms, order food with a single tap, and drown our minds in endless digital entertainment. The wealthy have taken this optimization to its absolute extreme. They have built an environment of perfect, seamless comfort. But in doing so, they have accidentally broken their internal scale of appreciation. When your baseline is perfection, anything less than perfection feels like a tragedy. A slightly delayed flight feels like an insult. A poorly seasoned meal feels like a disaster. By voluntarily entering a world of extreme simplicity, where they fast for hours, sit in physical discomfort, and perform manual labor, the wealthy are intentionally resetting their hedonic baseline. They are forcing their brains to remember what it feels like to struggle, so that a simple cup of plain water or a basic bowl of rice can once again taste like absolute luxury. Consider the history of Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha. He did not begin his journey as a starving ascetic in the woods. He began his life as a prince, surrounded by unimaginable luxury, shielded from all forms of suffering, sickness, and aging by his father. He had the finest clothes, the most beautiful companions, and absolute power. Yet, it was precisely because he had everything that he realized the inherent emptiness of external conditions. He sneaked out of the palace gates, saw the reality of human suffering, and realized that his palace was just a beautiful prison. The exact same realization is happening in modern-day Silicon Valley and Wall Street. The tech founders who build the apps that capture our attention, the hedge fund managers who manipulate the global markets, they are the modern-day princes. They have consumed every pleasure our civilization has to offer. And like Siddhartha, they are discovering that the palace walls cannot keep out the fundamental anxieties of existence. They are realizing that the human condition cannot be engineered away with money. There is an ultimate paradox at the heart of the human experience. We spend our entire lives accumulating degrees, money, status, possessions, and relationships, operating under the deeply ingrained assumption that happiness is an equation of addition. We believe that the more we add to our lives, the more complete we will become. But the wealthiest people, who abandoned their fortunes to live like monks, have discovered the ultimate counterintuitive secret. True fulfillment is not an equation of addition. It is an equation of subtraction. It is not about acquiring the perfect life. It is about systematically dismantling the internal illusions, desires, and attachments that prevent you from appreciating the life you already have. They become monks, not to escape the world, but to escape the exhausting, never-ending illusion that the next thing will finally be the thing that saves them. They learn to sit in a quiet room, completely still, doing absolutely nothing, and realize that they already possess everything they were searching for at the top of the mountain. We live in a culture that treats poverty as a failure and extreme wealth as the ultimate victory. We are constantly bombarded with messaging telling us to grind harder, build more, and buy our way to peace. But the secret exodus of the elite into monasteries is a loud, silent warning to the rest of humanity. It is a living proof that the ladder we are all desperately trying to climb is leaning against the completely wrong wall. You can spend your whole life running yourself into the ground to secure a future of absolute abundance, only to realize that the most valuable thing money can buy you is the realization that money was never the answer. The tragedy of the human condition is that most people have to win the game just to realize how pointless it was to play. You don't need to become a millionaire to learn the lesson that the millionaires are paying fortunes to discover. The quiet room, the stillness, and the freedom from wanting are already available to you, completely free of charge, right now. Because in the end, the richest person is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least.